So welcome to the UK Gravel Collective Cycling Podcast, from now on known as UKGC Podcast, because it's too long to say every time, even though I've said it every time in the last few podcasts. Anyway, for those of you avid listeners, and I'm sure you all are, you must have listened to the episode on the Dales Divide that I did with Tim and David, and if you haven't listened, why not? I'll allow you in the corner over there, you can go back and check the podcast now. Okay, he's had enough time. Okay. So I've got Tim and David here, and to do a bit of a Dales Divide debrief, because that event happened, what was it, a week ago?
Last
Easter weekend.
Yeah,
have you tried to blot it out?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was Easter weekend 2023, for those who are listening in the year 3000, because obviously this podcast will be that popular.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to recap, Tim's a bit of a veteran for long distance bikepacking events. David, this is your first official long distance bikepacking event, although you've done your own stuff. And we were talking in the last podcast about training, what bike you're going to take. So let's start with that. I think when we did the podcast, there were about 6 or 7 weeks to go before the event. How did the training go?
It just carried on the same, but I got forced into buying a new bike by a friend of mine at the very last minute, and I'd only used it 3 times or possibly 4, and I decided to go on that because it was a new bike and it worked alright. It was good. It was a bit of a risk, I thought, not having done many miles on it, but I did one long ride on it and that didn't kill me, so I thought it'll be okay. And it was a full suspension bike.
Okay, well, let's come back to the bikes.
Okay.
How about you, David, training wise?
Yeah, did a few rides that were sort of 100 miles or so, or a bit longer. Most weekends running up to it, and then the last weekend we went out together, didn't we? And did less than about 75 miles or something like that. And then had a quiet week before the actual event.
Okay, so I know that you both went on quite a few rides, and I assume you were trying to recreate what like a day's riding would have been.
Yeah, but that's all you can do.
Locally we've got 3 pretty, not big hills, but they are big hills for around here. So we've got the Clent Hills.
Yeah.
I know you both went to Malvern Hills.
Yeah.
Most people probably will have heard of the Malvern Hills.
Yeah.
And also Clee Hill.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, and I'm allowed to swear here, it's a bloody big hill.
It really is a bloody big hill.
Not too bad.
So that's like 100 miles, and this was in February, wasn't it? February, March time?
Yeah, most of the training.
So that must have started in the dark and ended in the dark. It would have been for me, because it would have taken me that long.
Yeah, it's pretty much dark to dark.
So how does that compare to the Dales Divide route? I mean, you've done it before, Tim.
There's more hills in the Dales. It's just endless climbing. The first, 30k is sort of roads and undulating.
More gentle, and then the big stuff.
And then all of a sudden you go in, this is a big hill, and then it's a really big hill, and then you go down, and then you go straight back up again, and it's just like that endlessly for a whole day.
Although you've done similar stuff, it's still sort of a shock to the system once you start.
Yeah, it's properly tough.
Really so let's go on to bikes then. Let's do David first, because I know that we went on a few rides together, and you turned up on a different bike nearly every ride.
Well, I don't want to disappoint anybody, do I?
So what did you actually do on in the end?
I think when we did the first podcast, I said I was going to take a sort of monster cross bike, I think, with a front suspension fork, but since that, then I went on to my fat bike, I think, with 29 plus wheels, and then after that I decided to take a more normal sort of hardtail, so I ended up on a Ragley Big Al hardtail with a RockShox fork, and then sort of 2.35 tyres, I think it was at the end. So trying to go sort of fast and light to take the edge off the rough stuff.
Yeah.
With a dropper post as well for the nice descent.
So how many miles did you actually do on that before the event?
I probably did, well, 200 or 300 maybe.
Okay, yeah.
If you-
So-
yeah, bedded in a bit.
So you were sort of used to it then.
Yeah, it's one I prepared earlier.
Okay, Tim, go. Tell us about your new bike.
Trek Super Caliber. My mate bought one, showed me a picture, said it's brilliant, and that was it. I bought one too, and the bike shop got it, and I thought, okay, we'll just do it on it. And it is really good. It climbs brilliantly, it's super comfy. 60mm of travel on the back. It is brilliant. Really good bike.
Lightweight.
Light, 11 kilos. Put them on your bike. It's properly light. And then you cover it in loads of stuff and make it really heavy. But it's a light bike and it just feels really good. It's a good bike. I was very pleased with it.
Okay, so you sorted your bikes. You're confident.
Yep.
You know what you're taking.
Yep.
You rock up on Good Friday, I think.
No, we went on Thursday and stayed at Chris, the organiser. I know him, and I said, "Can we park up in the van and sleep in the van?" Because he's got a great big farmhouse, and there was other riders there that were staying there, and his brother-in-law had just arrived from Australia that day, so the house was full. So he said, "Yeah, you can just camp in the garden." So he's got a big workshop. Took the bikes into his workshop.
So you got up there early to acclimatise to the elevation,
yeah.
conditions.
Bit
We had-
nippy at night actually, wasn't
Yeah,
it? We
it was
realised that
cold.
first night
Yeah,
it wasn't much above freezing, and it pretty much
Yeah.
stayed that way. I
It was
think.
cold at night.
So to recap, the Dales Divide race starts on the west coast of northern England,
Yeah, it's in Yorkshire,
and then basically
border
goes right across the country
to Scarborough,
to the east coast, and then back again.
back again, yeah, in a big loop.
Okay, so when you got to, I believe it's Arnside where it
Yeah,
starts,
onside.
on the beachfront,
Yeah, on the pier at onside.
how did you feel? And when you wheeled your bike out,
This
What
is bloody
was going
heavy,
through your mind?
mostly.
I was completely calm because I'd met, there was a few people there that I knew, and I was just chatting to them and picked my tracker up, and I wasn't worried about it all. There's loads of people. It's like a big party atmosphere. I thought it was great because I'd done it before, so that sort of takes the edge off the panic and the fear.
It's a nice atmosphere, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
everyone
good.
milling around, and there was some sort of speeches from some of the charities. I think who benefit from the entrance fee, and
Yeah,
I
because
think
how much was it? £10,000.
10k, I think they raised, which was
From
spread around
all
some
of us
really good
riders.
local
Yeah.
charities.
so how many competitors were there altogether?
200. It was
Apparently it was, I don't know, well over 200.
There
that's
was
for sure.
loads,
Yeah.
and there was an amazing amount of women riding.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted. There really was loads and loads. I thought there'd be 5, and there was loads, really loads.
Way more than the normal sort of ratios you typically
Yeah.
see out on
There was a
the
famous woman that does a load of YouTubing that rides in a pink helmet and sandals. Do you know her?
I saw some of the sandals. Yeah.
Yes, Jade,
Anyway,
Field.
she was there.
Maybe.
Jade. I'll look it up. Carry on
Okay.
talking.
So yeah, so I rode with her for a bit across that bumpy moorland towards Ripple's Head Viaduct.
Oh, yeah.
That was really cool. And someone went past her and said, "Oh yeah, I've just watched your latest video." And then they was chatting. I thought, "Oh, she must be some kind of famous YouTuber." But she got so much mud all over her feet. She wasn't even wearing socks. She just got sandals on. Her feet must have been freezing.
Yeah, Jade Saskia.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I rode with her for a bit.
Apparently, she's a cyclist and donut connoisseur.
Oh,
according
well,
to her
there
we
we
all
go.
are.
Yeah. So, yeah. So,
Yeah, it was good. I was having some Garmin issues, unfortunately, around the start, which was
Oh, yeah.
not much fun. It was playing up,
I had to do a
Switch.
factory reset
and then it still had.
that
I was still
that-
plagarmed with issues after that. So
right at the
Couldn't
start.
give you much confidence.
No, not great. We've got 600 kilometres of a Garmin playing up. But anyway, that wasn't the main issue in the end.
So I have to explain the noises in the background. We're recording this in Blackwell Club, so there are customers at the bar, and I've also got an audience tonight, and I'm going to ask them now to do a Mexican wave.
That comes out really
Which
well.
is
on the
great
podcast.
on just on audio. So any heckling in the background and clinking of glasses, it's just because we're so popular. So what was the weather like? Because I know this is a major factor in being out in the middle of nowhere.
It was good.
Day one was really nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Clear
clear.
skies,
It was a bit cold in the morning, but
still no wind.
no
on the
wind,
first
no
day.
wind, and
Clear
no
blue
rain,
sky, sunny.
and yeah, it was good.
What about under the tyres?
Yeah, it was a bit damp, to say the least.
Leading up to it, we must have had a fortnight of rain.
There was the odd bog or two and the puddle here and there, but generally the nice hard sort of stone trails.
I
Generally,
wore my winter boots.
Yeah.
I got two, and I didn't know whether to wear my Gore-Tex boots or just my normal riding shoes, and I went with the Gore-Tex ones, and I am so glad I did, because I didn't get wet feet all weekend.
Yeah.
And I didn't overheat because it wasn't really that hot. I got a bit wind blasted and sort of sunburnt a little bit perhaps, but but the weather was good. Second day,
Yeah, it sort of greyed up a bit the second day and the third day.
yeah, it was a bit more overcast.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
And then the rain, I think, did come in, well, a little bit after we finished
Yeah.
our respective rides. But
Yeah.
some people did get caught out towards the end in some pretty
Yeah,
grim weather, I think.
Yeah.
Not us, though.
there was someone I saw today on Instagram, and she was taking like 5 days over, and she was on the North York Moors in the snow yesterday.
Oh, wow, snow.
Yeah, it was absolutely hoofing it down. So that wouldn't be much fun.
Yeah, there were some epic pictures on Instagram in the days after it.
Yeah, it was quite lucky, really. The little window.
We just got away with it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I saw one picture of someone basically just pushing their bike through a bog.
Yeah.
Oh, we all did that.
Which
It was
was
quite a
quite
bit of
fun.
fun, to be honest. There was, there was bogs.
So conditions were pretty wet, and
Yeah, wet.
so where did you sleep the first night? And how long did you ride on the first day?
We set off about 8:30, didn't we? I think,
Yeah.
from the pier at
Yeah.
the start of the day. I think I stopped at about 2:30 the following morning. I think it was on the outskirts of York.
When did you start?
8:30 Friday morning.
And you rode till 2:30 in the morning?
2:30 Saturday morning, I think it was. And then slept in some bushes, basically, in a lovely National Trust park. You know, I'm sure they encourage wild camping, but I left no trace. So
I rode till about 11 o'clock. I did about 170k, but I had bonked really bad. Just before I was trying to get to a place called Summerbridge before the shop shut at 9. And I was feeling a bit weird, and then I was just going up a hill and I just fell off the cliff, and I was really in a bad way. Stopped, ate some food, and then dragged myself to Summerbridge. And I got there at 5 to 9, so I went in, and I went a bit shop blind, and I didn't know what I was in there to buy. But I thought, well, I'm in the door now, they can't throw me out, I've got a basket. So I just did about 5 laps of this tiny shop trying to work out what to buy. And I bought a tub of ice cream, an orange,
an orange,
a pear,
combo,
a can of Coke, 2 litres of water, and a massive rhubarb pie that big in a tin foil tray. And I took it all outside and went, what? And then the door was shut, it was too late then, I couldn't get anything else. So I had to fold this pie up and shove it in my bag. And I ate a load of the ice cream, and then a few minutes later David arrived.
Yeah, just saw you
just after the shop had shut.
Just after the shop had
Desperate
shut.
stuffing his ice
rhubarb
cream.
So I gave him some of my orange, and then
Thank you.
and then I was slightly revived, and I carried on. David stayed at the shop. I think he was trying to break in to get some rhubarb
They
pie.
weren't
possibly.
having any of it. No.
So I carried on, but I hadn't recovered, and I was just getting worse and worse, and I was. It got to about 10:30, and I was heaving as I was riding along, and I thought, oh yeah, that's me done for the day. I can't really. So I just carried on until I found some woods, and I just kept in the woods. I tried to get up early, but I was completely done in the morning. Got up at 5, and I was riding at 6, and then it's flat then all the way to York from where we was. And there was just these little slight inclines, and it was just absolutely killing me to get up these slight inclines. and I was arguing with myself, or like, well, shall I do the full route or shall I do the shorter route? Because once I get to York, I can cut across the middle and it cuts off 150k of the route.
Yeah.
And I was going, no, you've got to do the full route, and all this is out loud. Luckily, there was no one there. And no, you can do the short route. No, you've got to do the full route. It was terrible. Then I got to York, had some food in Morrison's because I got a calf, and went and bought a load of sensible food this time instead of rhubarb pies. And,
The ice cream?
no ice cream this time. Bought some rice pudding though, that was good. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do the short route. So then I told everybody I'm doing the short route, and then I felt a lot better then. So I decided. It took me all day to recover physically.
Do you think
about
it was
4 o'clock?
just the fueling?
It was fueling. I'd been trying to eat it every hour, but I'd obviously not put enough food in, because we did nearly 4,000 metres in the first 170 kilometres. It's a lot of climbing.
Yeah.
It really is. And I just
With a fully loaded bike. Twice as much as your normal bike, probably.
Yeah. And even on a lightweight bike, fully loaded.
I say it's 2 kilos lighter. It's
You've still got
bottle of water.
You've got to carry that over the hills.
Yeah. So I think it was just fueling. So I decided that's
How was your
best
fueling, David?
decision.
Because I know we had the discussion about you being vegan and the
Yeah.
options being more limited.
Well, I think I ended up taking a lot more than what it appeared other people were carrying, that's for sure. It looked like I was ready for an expedition, the amount of bags and things on my bike. So I took some dehydrated meals, as backup, and I had a lot of sort of carb powder in my drinks. So I was, sipping a lot of that as I went to sort of keep me topped up. I had a lot of other stuff kicking around, and a stove obviously to cook. So quite way down, but there wasn't always stuff available for me in village stores or local pubs and things like that. So I was kind of equipped for every eventuality, which weighed me down a bit. So I think the first day I did all right. I think that what did it for me was the lack of sleep. I didn't sleep well the night before the event. And then I think riding a longer day and trying to sleep for 2 hours and then do it all again.
Yeah. Well, 8:30 till 2:30 in the morning is a pretty long stint.
Yeah. So I think the lack of sleep was probably the thing which affected me most. I think I must say on day 2 I was starting to heave a bit on some of the things I was trying to eat. They just wouldn't go down. I think I went through it past a Greggs and bought up all of their... it was on the way up actually. We stopped at Greggs and I bought all of their vegan sausage rolls and pasties. I thought, I'll take those on the ride, I can nibble them. But of course on the next day they were just really dry. You sort of put it in your mouth and it would instantly soak up any moisture whatsoever that was in your body. And then I had like this sugary liquid to drink. It was just not a good combination. So I think there's a bit of work to do on the race fueling strategy.
Yeah. I think you'll be brilliant though at the cream cracker challenge.
Maybe after that practice. Yeah.
It always seems that whatever food you've got, you want what someone else has got. It doesn't matter what you take. It's always generally.
Well, that happens on my rides. If I take something, I immediately want something else completely. If I take like a fruit and nut mix, I want something sugary.
A bag of crisps.
Yeah,
exactly. It's always the way.
Tim, you decided to do the short route, so it's not that much shorter, is it?
It's 450k altogether, so it's 150k shorter.
Okay.
So it is shorter. It's a significant distance, and
small ride, really. Isn't it?
Yeah. So you just it gives you another route. You just load the new GPX file when you get to York, and it just cuts through the middle, and it's pretty much the same sort of riding as going from York to Scarborough. There's some fast gravel stuff. There's some country lanes. There's a whacking great big climb in the middle that's ludicrously steep. It was a road, but it said no motor vehicles, and I could barely walk up it. It took me an hour to get to the top, pushing my bike. It was unbelievable. But the down was pretty good on the other side when you get to the top. And then you join the main route just towards the end of the North York Moors, which is a tiny little bit you have to do, and then you join the main route again.
Yeah.
So I got to North Allerton, I think. And I was trying to work out where the bothies were, but I couldn't find them on the map, so I asked David, and he sent me a profile, and it's by the time I got the message, I was only 15k from a bothy,
because at the time, I mean, you both, all the competitors, I don't know whether you were required to have a spot tracker, but you could have a spot tracker, so you basically, anyone who dialed into that could see exactly where you were.
No, theoretically.
But according to your spot tracker, Tim, you were nowhere near the bothy.
No,
but you actually were.
I was, yeah. So all the first day, every time I looked, I'd only looked a few times. It's like, well, I'm nowhere near there. What? But sometimes they don't work, or they don't track properly, or there's a delay. And when everyone's together, you can't tell where you are on the track leaders anyway. So at the end of the first day, I looked and I was like, I'm 50k back, and that's weird. And then by the time I got to York, I was still in the same place. So I thought, oh, well, my one's obviously bust, it's not working. And then when I started on the shortcut, I was looking, and there was no one on the shortcut apart from me on track leaders.
Yeah.
But I'd got no spot at all, nothing. And then I had another, Verity, David's wife, sent me a message, and I was carrying on the main route.
Your soul would carry
so
on.
The man had given me the wrong track, given mine to someone else, and giving me one that hadn't been registered.
You didn't slip it into someone else's pocket?
I didn't know. So then I thought, oh, well, that's weird. I haven't got a tracker. And then I got back to the pier on the last day. I met the bloke and I lost the tracker on the last day as well. And I thought, well, I'll go back and find it. And went, oh, can't, it doesn't work. It doesn't track, so I can't do that. So he said he'd give me the money back for the tracking that I'd paid for track leaders since I didn't have any. So no one knew where I was at any point during my time.
So it's pretty good that you didn't have a mechanical that you needed. There's
no with those ones that you hire. It's just a tracker. It doesn't have any SOS function or anything like that. So you're on your own. You have to you lose your phone if you get into trouble.
So you're pretty near the bothy. Did you make it?
Yeah, I made it. Yeah, because it was because I did.
I think you probably ought to explain what a bothy is.
Oh well, they run. I don't know if they're run by the Bothy Association countrywide, are they? So
different organisations.
Yeah, so this one was in Yorkshire, and they're just sort of mountain huts, and some of them are really basic and don't have anything apart from a table and some chairs and a bit of floor you can sleep on. Some of them are quite luxurious. But this one was the first one I'd come to, and it was spotless, absolutely spotless. There was running water, there was a toilet, there was a log burner, there was a load of brooms and dustpan and brushes.
Is it a witch's house?
There was one of those witch's brooms hanging up, one of those flappers for putting out.
It wasn't made of gingerbread. You weren't hallucinating this, were you, Tim?
No, it was actually real. And I got there, I hadn't even had to put my light on because I'd done another 170k day, and I only left 100 for the next 100 kilometres for the last day. So I got there, and I hadn't even had to put my light on. It was still light, so I got there in the light, and I had to look around. There was no sleeping platforms in this. It was just a big table and then a concrete floor. It wasn't massive. But there was no one else there, so I laid my bed out on the table so I wouldn't have to sleep on the concrete floor. And it was really, really good. Cooked my tea, went outside. I got signal. I was in the middle of nowhere, and I got signal. Phoned my wife, told her where I was. Yeah, it was really good.
Landed on your feet there, I think. A bit nicer than my second night out, that's for sure.
So, what was your second night?
Oh dear, my day two, I carried on the main route. And had a bit of a nightmare in York, sort of trying to buy some oat milk and make some porridge for breakfast. And so I went to Morrison's, got some oat milk, and set up next to the River Ouse in York, very picturesque. And I don't know how, sort of half asleep, managed to sort of fumble, and my oat milk actually sort of dropped into the river, which entertained all of the geese in the river. So then I was very annoyed and had to go back into the supermarket and buy some more oat milk. And then I thought, I'm riding away from here, so I rode down the cycle route and cooked on the side of the trail, and then people came past. So that wasn't a good start. And then the slog over to Scarborough,
I told you it's a long way.
It just felt really hard for some reason. A lot of it was quite grassy, sort of bridleways, the sort of, hoof sort of marked sort of bridleways, and they were just really sort of jarring and tiring, and it took forever. So lots of steep ups and downs over valleys. And anyway, so yeah, got to Scarborough, and of course bank holiday weekend in Scarborough, it was apocalyptic. It was like the end of
end of days.
It was
in
like,
Scarborough
yeah,
on a
sort
bank
of like-
holiday.
I don't know.
And you turned up, you've
Killing
not
me
had a
with a
wash
blush,
for
I
2
think.
days.
It was,
You've done how
Yeah.
many kilometres?
and then I was trying to find something vegan to eat in Scarborough, of course, on a bank holiday weekend full of just lunatics. So I went round in circles, stuffed my face in McDonald's, bought some extra to take away, and got out of there as soon as I could. And then sort of up the cinder track, the old railway going north, and then various forests and sort of plantations.
I really like that.
Are there
Yeah.
checkpoints? So
No checkpoint.
it's an honesty thing then, really.
Well, if you've got a tracker, then you can
Okay,
track.
yeah.
It'll track.
Yeah.
Apart from the one you had.
Apart from the one I had that didn't work.
Yeah. So yeah, I was pretty tired as the night sort of drew in and all the rest of it, and I made, I think, 3 wrong turns at some junctions, and of course the turn I chose was the one that went down a massive valley side, and before I realised I had to climb back up
Yeah.
to the junctions. I think I did that 3 times, and then eventually through a massive bog on the way to the North York Moors Railway, which is where the route carries on, and I dropped into Goathland where they film Heartbeat, that classic series. And I got there, and it was, I don't know, 3 in the morning, I think, and it was very cold that night.
Yeah.
And I thought I just need to duck my head down and sleep. And of course, probably on the high street in Goathland, there's like a lovely bus shelter with like a little picket sort of gate on it. So I just went in there basically and crashed out in the bus shelter, thinking it might be slightly warmer than outside somewhere. So yeah, I was in there, and then after a few minutes of trying to sleep, there was just like rustling noises, and I thought, oh no, what is it, rats or mice or something trying to eat the food in my bags? And then there was like a slight purring noise, and I realised that a cat had decided to come over and join me, and it was like going through all my bags, and then it was like climbing on top of me, and then it was trying to get in my bivvy bag and sleep inside my sleeping bag. It was such a lovely cat, it was having a little rub on me and very friendly, but I was worried it might sort of puncture my sleeping mat with its claws, so I had to try and shoo it away. No. It eventually left, so I got certainly less than 2 hours sleep again that night, and the next morning I was not great, but. And then after that, as you'll remember, Tim, the climbs are brutal.
Yeah.
In and out of the valleys and where the railway is, like 33% road climbs.
Wow.
A couple of
It's
times.
100%.
You see you see these pictures of the sign. Everyone's say 33%. You go, and you do all that and you go, well, I must have done it because that one was. So,
Yeah.
And then you come to it and you go, oh my, that's. You turn a corner. There's a couple of corners, hairpins, and then you go. Oh, you look at it. I can't ride with that. No way.
So that was a lovely start to day 3. But yeah, we got there and out onto the moors, and then anyway, there's another story, of course, after that. We'll come to, I'm sure.
The moors is a good bit there.
It's
really,
lovely. It's
really.
nice.
There's like that old railway that skirts around the
Yeah.
side of the valleys, and it's really spectacular. I really enjoyed that.
It's very
bit.
picturesque. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about day 2. You got to the bothy, Tim?
I got to bed there, yeah.
Slept for 7 hours on a table?
Yeah, it was so. Someone came in at 11, shone his torch on me, and looked at me a bit weird because I was asleep on the table. And I think I went back to sleep, and he was snoring his head off. I got up early. I got up at 4:30, I think, maybe, because I'd had so much sleep, and thought, I'll just go out on the trail. And it was really foggy because I hadn't done that bit. The next bit of the trail I'd not seen in the daylight, because the times I'd done it before I'd ridden all night to finish, so I hadn't seen any of the scenery, so I was really looking forward to it. And then I got up and it was just thick fog. I thought, oh well, that's just brilliant, isn't it? I'm not going to see anything. And I'd just gone out to the trail, and a lad came past, rider, and he'd done the full route, so he was pretty quick, and I caught him up and was riding with him for a bit. Well, actually, I rode for the rest of the day all the way to the finish line, and I asked him if he wanted me to ride with him or if he wanted to do it on his own. Just tell me, and I'd bugger off. And he said, "No, it's really good. Speak, moral support to drag him to the line." So I was just dragging him along, and it was really good. Gave him some paracetamol because he'd got a bad Achilles tendon. So yeah, it was very good. You got a gravel bike with that much 50 mil. I suppose that much doesn't really work audible, does it?
No.
It's, 50 mil of travel foot, 50 mil fork. Because he'd
right.
done it the year
yeah.
before on a rigid bike, and he said he was
Yeah.
really battered. He said he wouldn't do it again, and he got quite wide tyres. I don't think
more
those
comfy.
50 mil. Maybe those. They were pretty big though for a gravel bike, bigger than you lot have. I think they were.
Yeah.
How did you get on with the big climb up Cam High Road?
I was fine with it because I'd had 8 hours, 7 hours sleep, and that was I'd done that the time before. That was the bridle way, the beggar's way or something it's called.
It's really rocky.
And I really liked it the 2 times I'd done it before, even though it was in the dark. I thought I'd love to do this in the light. And the fog had cleared by the time I got to there, and it's just this really, really long climb that's really rocky, all the way to the top. You go across a road halfway, and then you're up again, and it gets a little bit steeper at the top, but it just goes on and on and on and on. It's really long, but I really enjoyed it. I loved it, and the bike just soaked it all up. I mean, the suspension on it really helped.
Yeah.
But it was very, very cold at the top. When I got up there on the third day, it really was cold quite a lot of the time.
Yeah. And that's the highest part of the route around there, anyway, isn't it? I think
Yeah,
it's
we
sort
go
of
3. I can't remember.
getting on for 600 metres, I think. Something.
Yeah, we stopped at the highest point. I was finding these digestive biscuit bars all the way along the road. Every like mile. Like, oh look, there's another one. I probably picked up 6 that morning, so I split them between me and Rich, the other lad I was riding with. I said, "Have you been dropping biscuit bars?" Because he went, "No, they're not mine." So we split them and ate them
Some
at the
poor
top.
soul.
Yeah.
Nothing
Basically,
to eat.
I thought, well, if we find someone
malnutrition.
later on that's lost all, I'll give them some of my
Rhubarb
rhubarb pie. I'd still got some of it by then. It was very nice. It didn't look very appealing by that point.
So come on, David. Let's see the story of day 2.
Day 3.
Day
now.
3. Oh, so
Yeah.
after throwing you breakfast in the river, wrestling a cat. What happened on day 3?
So yeah, after Gothland, there were all the steep climbs and some really muddy bridleway, steep bridleway stuff around the valleys. So then it was a long climb up to the moors. Lovely sort of almost like straight lines up and down over all the moors, the valleys. And then the bit of old railway sweeping around the valley heads. And yeah, I think I was suffering a bit by that point. I was feeling a bit sort of low on energy, but kept plodding along. So one of my knees was feeling a little bit tender. It had been on day 2, but I thought it's okay, it'll be all right. But I think as day 3 progressed, there were a few sort of steep bits, a few sort of rocky sections, and like you had to sort of almost like walk your bike down some rocky steps in one place, which seemed a bit silly for a route choice. But I started getting some sort of almost like sharp pains in the side of my right knee.
Right.
So I was starting to get a little bit concerned. So I tried to ease off the tension on my pedals to try and let my ankles and
So it's got more movement.
But then realised that I'd probably put too much tension in my pedals, which probably hadn't helped. And then one of my bolts rounded off, so
Oh no.
so I ran out of adjustment on the pedal that I needed, and the other one wasn't much better. So I sort of pressed on up and over the moors, heading for Osmotherley, where the sort of shortcut route joined. But as I carried on, it just got worse and worse, to be honest. And even just walking and pushing the bike, I was in a bit of pain. So I wasn't very pleased. It was a shame, really, because I felt, even though I was tired, I could do it, and I was hoping to still do it within about 3 days overall. But I thought, if I press on, even with painkillers, I'm likely to do some form of damage, which is not
long
worth
term.
it.
Yeah.
So I was sort of hobbling across the moors, trying to make my way to somewhere where I could call for a lift. But there were a few times where it just twinged, and they're all it's a popular walking trail, the Cleveland Way, so it twinged at the wrong moment, and I'd be like, mother funsters, like the top of my voice, and all these ramblers would just sort of look around and like, oh, it's not you, it's my knee, it's okay. So yeah, I carried on a bit and then just sort of rang my much better half, who was coming up to meet me at the end, but unfortunately she ended up having to do a big detour across the country from the finish to come and collect me. And
how long did you? Well, it's probably the wrong word. Agonise over that decision, because I know you're a determined guy, and it would have been a last resort to scratch from it. So it must have been painful.
Yeah, it was. I think normally just keep going, but I thought I love riding so much. I really don't want to do any long-term damage to myself, because there's always going to be more riding after this event, and I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I don't think really.
Yeah.
So I made myself to a little beauty spot and made the call and left a message, and then just sort of sat there and enjoyed the view, and then carried on hobbling towards a village pub where I sat and drank some fizzy drinks and ate some salt and vinegar crisps and took my boots off, and all the locals gave me a wide looking at the state of me, but my better half bundled me into the van and took me to a hotel, and I slept a lot, shook a lot, and it was a bit knackered, I think.
And so, Tim, you made it to the finish?
Yeah, with Rich was trying to beat, because he did it last year, and he was trying to beat his time from last year. So once we got back through the Dales, it's not as hard as the start of the Dales. The first bit is really tough, but when you're coming back through, there is some big climbs, but they're not as bad as the first day. But we was overtaking quite a lot of riders that had done the full route, and they was absolutely buggered going up all of these hills, because once you've done that distance, it is pretty. And I remember it, the previous two times being pretty tough, but this time it was a lot easier for me because I'd not done distance and I'd had a massive sleep as well.
Yeah.
So he was absolutely barrelling along, and then when you get to a place called Dent, it's pretty much road all the way. There's one tiny bit of off-road. And we was in the valley and we got a tailwind. It was absolutely steaming along. It was going so quick. And and then we just carried on, and he was trying to get there by 1:30, and we got out onto the last bit of road, and the wind turned, and it was like a block headwind for the last bit. It was an absolute killer, and we was just going as fast as we could, and we got there at 24 minutes past.
Oh, brilliant.
So we beat his time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that he was absolutely over the moon. And I was quite happy to be there, but I didn't feel like I'd done it really, because I'd done the shorter route. But I really enjoyed it, and the last day I got to see all of that scenery that I hadn't seen before. It was great, really good.
So, what are your feelings about the race now, a week after? I mean, you both sort of went through the mill with either poor fueling or an injury.
Yeah.
What do you think now? I mean, probably the day, David, you sat outside the pub eating your crisps, did you think, I'm never doing this again?
I thought I needed a bit of time to digest what had happened, I think.
Because from the layperson sitting this side of the microphone, it does seem like type 2 fun.
I was missing it whilst I was riding to the finish line on the last day. I was thinking, it'll all be over soon. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then all the way home, I was thinking, what can I do next? So what can I do next? I was, I really want to do some more straight away.
Cool. I think, I was gutted. I wanted to ride it and finish it. I was just really annoyed at myself more than anything. Possibly my bike sort of fit and adjustment wasn't right, which probably resulted in the pain, which stopped it. But I wanted to carry on. I wanted to do it, and I think there's plenty more events to do. So
bike fits are a good idea. I had one a few years ago.
The thing is, it's if like your 100-mile training rides, the issue wouldn't come up, because it's
that's the thing, you can't replicate
compared
3
to,
days.
To 300 miles.
It's
plus,
very difficult to have a week
one after
off.
the other.
Yeah,
it's hard to recreate that, isn't it?
One thing I've definitely learned, that you can do as many long single-day rides as you like, but it doesn't
make any difference.
Give you the full feel or preparedness, I think, for number of days of the same thing over and over, and possibly not great rest in between either.
Yeah.
So do you think, David, that you've got unfinished business with the Dales Divide? Will you do it again?
Maybe. I mean, I don't feel like I have to do it to show that I can. I know I could do it. But the scenery in the route is so nice. I love that part of the world anyway. So I'll be quite tempted to go and do it again, just to be riding there. I think that's whatever time.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. Yeah. It really is.
So a week or so on, what are your plans now? What's your next event? Because it clearly hasn't put you off.
I'm going to do a riding. It's not a race, but there's a ride in Wales called the Big Bear, which is all round mid Wales-ish. It's a route made by Stuart Wright from Bare Bones Bike Packing. It's one of his routes, and I've got that off him, so I'm going to do that in the beginning of May.
It's
the middle of May.
One.
Yeah, it's 520
all
kilometres,
of the bits. Yeah.
and there's lots of climbing, but it's not a race, so we can just do it over. Me and the mate are going to do it, and then I'm going to do the Great North Trail in June. But that's again not a race; it just goes from Peak District to either Cape Wrath or John O'Groats. So I'm going to go to Cape Wrath because I've been to John O'Groats.
Okay.
So, and that's, I don't know how far that is. I think that's about 800 miles. But that'll be good.
So
But no,
that
not
doesn't
races.
sound-
But that'll just be like more like a jolly holiday, perhaps.
Okay, so I was out riding today,
Yeah.
and when I'm out riding, I always think of loads of things. Most of them I forget by the time I get home,
Yeah.
and I need to write them down. But I thought I'm going to design a route, and it's going to be called "Can You Cope with the Cake?" And it's going to be an
Different kind of
ultra.
endurance.
It's going to be an ultra with as many cafe stops on it as possible.
So the chances of bonking are really low.
No, the chances of getting type 2 diabetes quite high.
Sugar spikes.
But I thought I could plan a route around as many cafe stops as possible. Obviously, you don't have to have cake in every one. You could have savoury.
Yeah. Mix it up.
But like all the best cafes on one big route.
Yeah, that
in a
Sounds
day.
like something
Sign
you could
me
do.
up.
Yeah. Still in a slight calorie deficit, so let's go for it.
Is it a race? Or can we
No,
just...
it's never a race. No.
Well, that's even better. We don't need
There'll be no
spot trackers
racing on
that
that
don't
day.
work.
So I thought, I'll get home and I'll get on Komoot and I'll plot this. I still haven't done it, but
No.
now I've
idea.
actually recorded that fact.
You'll remember it.
Yeah. So that's another one to add to your diary, and I think it's quite an extreme
That'd
event.
make a good film for your UK gravel.
Like when you start,
You get bigger as you go.
you start off,
On
you
losing
start off at a
weight.
certain weight, and you finish and you weigh more.
That would be very unusual.
So it's not really been a negative thing, I don't think, but. Originally, when we did the first podcast, it was to encourage other people. Do you think what your experience?
Yeah, but you've got to be flexible because you can't say I'm definitely gonna. Because I said, well, unless you get injured or something, happens, and it happened to both of us.
Yeah. But we set off to ride the whole route, but things happened. Didn't go as we originally planned. But you just
And that happened to
adapt,
the people that there was someone there that I rode with on the second time I did it, and he was out to do the full route, and they didn't even do the short route. They didn't even get. They got to the shop that we met at by midday on the second day. So that's not even 100 miles by midday on the second day, and then they shortcutted. They just made a loop and went back to Arnside. It happened to quite a lot of people. I think the ground conditions were. It wasn't fairly boggy in places. There was a bit of pushing, which made it hard work.
In air inverted commas, the well-known riders also scratched and either cut short. Judging by the Instagram photos. So I wouldn't feel bad about yourselves.
I was arguing myself quite a lot on the way to York that morning and feeling bad about not doing it. And then once I'd made the decision and loaded the new route, then that was it. I was fine then once I'd decided.
It's kind of the same as any ride, isn't it? Even if it's just a day ride or a few hours in it, you might have a mechanical or the weather might turn horrible, so you change your plans, I guess, don't you?
Yeah.
I think the main thing is just showing up and doing a ride, whatever kind of ride it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do the best you can.
Well, thanks guys for doing the
Don't
debrief.
get a rhubarb cake, a rhubarb pie. I should have taken a picture of it, really.
I think on our cafe ride, there's going to be some rhubarb at some
But
point.
not a whole one
Search one
stuffed
out.
into a bag.
You can share it, though.
You could, yeah.
You don't have to eat it all.
Well, thanks for doing the Dales Divide debrief. I'm sure I'm going to get you two back on the podcast at some point when you do different
Something
events.
else.
And I'd probably take a microphone on the cafe ride as well.
The cake
But-
ride.
Yeah.
The endurance cake.
And you take
event.
the cake podcast.
Yeah, that would be good.
So thanks, David. Thanks, Tim.
Welcome.
And thanks for
Cheers.
everyone listening in.